Hey there, welcome to Mad to Glad guest interview with Dr. John DeGarmo, a foster care expert. John, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I see you all over the place on Facebook. I know that you travel all around the country speaking on various topics. You've got some great things underway. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into doing the work that you're doing?
Well, thanks for asking, Samantha. Met my wife from Australia, traveling in a performing group called Up With People. We travel the world singing and dancing. Years later, we got married and living in Australia, and our first child died of a disease called anencephaly, or some pronounce it anencephaly, a condition where the brain or skull never formed. So our first child died. Years later, moved back to the U.S., had 3 healthy children, and then we thought, well, we already had a child die. There are so many kids out there who are in need of a home, need of a family, need of love. How can we help these children out? What can we do to help them? So we began the foster care process, and 13 years later, we've had about 50 children come to the home and have adopted 3 children from foster care, and right now we have 8 kids in the house.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. You know, one of the things I respect about you is the knowledge that you have across the age range of children. And because of your personal experience, you're able to really speak to different parenting strategies, which is something I hold close to my heart as a parenting coach. But you're also able to really speak to the emotional aspect of what goes on. So why don't you share the biggest challenges that come with being a foster parent?
Well, there are so many. To begin with, these children don't want to be in my home. I can offer them stability, and I can offer them security and healthy environment and safety and unconditional love, but at the end of the day, when they first come to our home, I'm a stranger. I am a stranger. And it doesn't matter how abusive the home may have been, how much neglect they've had, whether they've been abandoned, they want to be with their mommy and their daddy. So we're strangers. So those first few nights are pretty rough because these children, they cry themselves to sleep every night, and there's nothing that we can do to really ease those anxieties. They just have to learn to trust us. And then as you are caring for these children come to our home with a variety of emotional challenges and suffer from a variety of different types of traumas and anxieties. So, you have to try to weave that into your own home. And then maybe the biggest challenge, though, for foster parents, as I've spoken to across the country, is when they leave. Because we love these children like they're our own children. They become our family. We love them unconditionally. So when they do leave our homes, it's like losing a member of your own family, I'm sorry. And there's a lot of grief. There's a lot of grief and loss for foster parents. So, it's certainly not easy. But with all that, it's so worth it. So worth it because you are helping a child to heal. You're giving child hope. You're giving child love, and you're giving the child's family. And I have become such a better person for every child that's come through my home.
And what would you say keeps that flame alive for you? Because there's got to be moments where the hope is gone, that flame feels like it's just about to be put out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We've had as many as 11 children in our home at one time. About a year ago, we had 7 children in diapers. I should say 7 children in diapers. That was a little hard. We get weary. We get burned out. It's exhausting. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I go to work to rest because when I come home, it is full on. My wife was just in Australia for 2.5 weeks, and I was home with 8 kids. And it was exhausting. So how do you keep that alive? And on top of that, not only do you have all of the cooking and the cleaning and the caretaking and the homework and the laundry and the dishes for so many children, you also have their anxieties and their emotional traumas they're going through. For example, children in foster care go to visitations. They visit their birth parents. That could be in a neutral setting. It could be in a child welfare system. It could be in a park. It could be at a church. It could be in a prison setting where they visit their parents in prison. So many times when these kids come back to our home, they're full of anxieties. They just saw their mommy, and now they're coming back to us, and they always want to go back to mom. So it's very hard. So you have all of these anxieties going on within the children. So how do you maintain that? It can be hard. It can be challenging, but you just have the knowledge that you are helping a child heal. You know, we had a child in our home for 4 months. The child never spoke to us. The child never smiled. Never spoke, never smiled. The day the child left, the child walked up to my wife, and he said, "I love you, Mommy." And my wife's heart just went ripped right in half, as you can imagine. Those are the moments that really make it worth it.
Mhm. A lot of the families that I work with in our Mad to Glad coaching program have kids on the autism spectrum and sensory processing disorders and expressive language delays. And I always love hearing those stories about connection between parent and child. And I understand that with all of the things going on, that can be so rewarding. And yet I want to dig a little bit deeper because I also believe that there's a natural component of self-care that you must include into your daily rhythm that's even teensy tiny. And I'm wondering, what are those pieces for you?
Well, there's a number of things. To begin with, as a married couple, my wife and I have to be on the same page. You know, one person can't want to foster and the other person want to do it. We both have to be united in that, because if we're not united in that, there's going to be resentment towards a child, resentment towards perhaps the spouse, resentment towards the foster care system in general. So you've really got to be united. You have to find some special time for yourself. For myself, it is gardening. I go in the garden a couple times a week just to have some me time, just to focus on myself, to reflect, to pray, whatever it may be. You know, healthy diet, good sleep, time with my spouse together is important. For me, it's prayer time as well. So there's a number of things that we have to do. But you're right, you've really got to take care of yourself. Because if you don't take care of yourself, there's no way you can take care of the child.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, finding joy is so key. And I love that you keep referencing you and your wife being on the same page. Are there things that you two like to do together, either with or without the kids, that bring more joy into your lives?
When you have 11 kids in the house, it's hard to find those moments. We often joke that we have to go in the closet to have an adult conversation, but sometimes it's true. You know, sometimes at night we will close the door and we'll put on a movie and watch a movie in bed, have some popcorn, some ice cream, whatever it may be. Prayer time in the morning is important. We communicate throughout the day constantly through text, through emails, reaffirmation of our love for each other and reaffirmation of our support, pitching in and making sure that we're all doing as much as we can together. You know, making sure that one person is not doing the bulk of the work. So it's that kind of support, that kind of mutual agreement, that type of encouragement that's so important.
Yeah, I think that's really key, and I so appreciate you speaking to that. It makes me think about how important it is to have a partner on this journey where you can express not just the support, but also talk about some of the fears that come up. And I know something that's unique to some of the families that I work with, who some of them are foster parents and some of them are not. They're bio parents or adoptive parents. And fears that can come up when kids have emotional traumas and challenging behaviors are fear of how sometimes it's of safety. It's of the immediate short-term safety of the child and of people around them, of your family. And other times it's long-term fears, things like, is this kid going to end up in prison? Is this child going to graduate from school? Are they going to be productive? And being able to get a grasp on those fears that can really spiral quickly, I'm curious if you have some insight on how you're able to manage fear.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. My oldest daughter is now 18. She graduated from high school. She's spending a year in Australia, where my wife is from and where my daughter was born. She's spending a year there working at a boarding school for girls, middle school girls. And it's an opportunity for my daughter to travel the world, and to see her own culture where she was born. I think she'll learn more in that year there than she would in 4 years of college. She had to have surgery over there. It's very hard for my wife and I because we're over here in the United States and she's half a world away. Last week, her identity was stolen in Australia. We had those fears, absolutely. We've adopted 3 children from foster care, 3 children that have issues related to fetal alcohol syndrome, to crack and meth and cocaine. We have those fears of their long-term health, their long-term challenges, their long-term education. Absolutely, we have all those fears. And then the children coming into our home from foster care as well. You know, I look at some of these children and I think to myself, how are they going to make it? How are they going to make it in the world? Absolutely, I have those fears. So how do I deal with that? For me, it is through a lot of prayer. It's through a lot of support for the child, a lot of positive encouragement, reinforcing to the child that I will always be there for that child. But then again, some things spiral out of our control. So how do you handle that? It's a great question. For me, it's just prayer, encouragement for my wife, and when my wife is really upset about it, I'm there for her, and vice versa, to talk through those fears with my spouse, to talk through those fears, to express those concerns with my child, to be honest with my child, and to encourage my children to be completely open and honest with me. But as you notice, there is a future out there. How about my 9-year-old daughter right now, who is came to me at 5 days old and born from a mother with a crack addict. And she has some challenges in front of her. So it is emotionally challenging for sure. You just have to have faith.
Right. I'm a big believer in there where you have to have faith and you have to have trust that you're in this child's life and this child is in your life for a reason.
Right.
And one of the things that I work with parents on is really creating statements of affirmation that they're saying to a child to help alleviate their fear. So sometimes kids are acting out and they're 10 years old and they're not understanding what's going on in school. And so they act out because it's easier to be the naughty kid or the defiant child rather than the dumb child. And so when kids are worried about this, they will act out. And it's so important for parents to practice saying to the child, I love you no matter what. Even if you absolutely fail math, I will love you no matter what. And the power of saying this to a child, I think, is so key, both for the child as well as the adult, as the parent, to hear that yourself, because you're reaffirming your own commitment. And I know that you have a daily, I think it's daily, I see it pretty frequently, a Facebook post where you write something on a piece of paper and you say, today I will. Are you doing that daily?
Yes, I am. Yeah. Reaffirmation.
And so I just wanted to ask about that. How did you get started, and how does that serve you and others?
Well, my wife and I we both traveled, as I said earlier, and up with people. It's an international performing group that travels the world. And this year we went to its 50th anniversary celebration, where my wife and I were actually honored as the Up With People 2015 Everyday Hero Award. We were nominated by 22,000 alumni from across the world. Very big honor. But during this year's performance of this year's cast, they had this song, and the performers held up a sign that said, I will, and it had all these things. So I thought, what a fantastic way to spread a message of positive thought. So I stole it from them. I took it from them. I really like it. It's every day I have to think to myself, okay, what am I going to do today that is positive? What will I do today that's going to make a difference to somebody?
I think that's beautiful. And one of the things that we do is we'll put little words on Post-it notes, words like kind and patient, and just those emotional value words, so that when you're in the moment and you're about to flip your lid, you remember, oh yeah, that's right, kind today. Let me find something kind.
Right. And I want to go back to something you said earlier about reaffirmation for children in regards to love. As a foster parent, I have some children come into my home who have never been loved in a healthy fashion by an adult. So it is so important that I give my love to these children. So many people say to me this, I couldn't be a foster parent because it would be too hard to give the children back. And I tell them that's exactly how it's supposed to be. Our hearts are supposed to break because these children need me. They need me to give them all of my love, to love them unconditionally. In my home, there's no There's no label for biological, adoptive, or foster. There's no black or white child. There's nothing like that. They're all of my children, and I love each one unconditionally. And when these children do leave my home and go back to an environment that may not be safe or may not be positive, I might be the only adult who has ever loved them in a healthy fashion for their childhood. So it is so important that each day I reaffirm that love to them. And I do that to all of my children, with an I love you, with a hug, with positive words of encouragement. And, there are some days where I'm thinking to myself, what have you done? What have you done? I'm so frustrated. But I have to find something every single day to praise them with. Because children need that. They have to have that, particularly in today's environment where there are so many negative messages everywhere.
I agree. And, I just have one more specific question before going into how people can access the work that you're doing. It was so fleeting. Let's see if I can come up with that. You were talking about what kids need. Oh, I know what it is. One of the things I'm sure you're really familiar with is that kids with emotional challenges and traumas, sometimes when you try to offer them praise and you try to offer them love, they may verbally reject or even in a hostile or aggressive manner reject that gift that you're giving them. How do you deal with that?
We've had that many times. We had a child come to us, 17 years of age. She had gone through 3 failed adoptions, 3 families that had adopted her, and 3 families that had abused her physically, sexually, emotionally, and 3 families that unadopted her. And when she came to us, as you can imagine, she was very full of trauma, full of anxieties. We tried to adopt her. I wasn't thinking that was not the right thing to do. Not the right thing to do because 3 families had already done that and abused her. Unconditional love to her was a bad word. Adoption to her was a bad word. She resisted everything that we tried to do. She just put up so many barriers. The day the adoption process was to start with her, she sabotaged it. She sabotaged everything that we tried to do with her. It was very, very, very hard for us. And for a number of years, I had a lot of guilt about that. Absolutely, these children do come with emotional barriers. And why shouldn't they? Because the adults in their lives have hurt them. But we have to be consistent. We have to continue every single day to give them that love, to show them that love in a variety of ways, despite the fact that they're resisting that. Despite the fact that they're resisting that, we need to keep showing them because they're looking for ways to show that, you know what, he doesn't really mean it. He doesn't really love me. I did something bad today, and he doesn't love me for it. We have to show them that regardless of all of that, I still love you. You may not accept it, but I'm still going to love you. And there's nothing that you can do to stop me from loving you.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And the question that I can hear some of my parents saying to themselves right now is, but how do you continue doing that? And it sounds like you just shared the answer. The way you continue doing that is you continue doing that. You really hold that as your driving force within you, that you're there to love those kids, and you keep overcoming your own barriers and hurdles and re-loving them and reaffirming to them.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Great. Well, I so appreciate your time today. I know the parents who know my Mad to Glad coaching program, I'm sure that they're listening on the edge of their seat because they're so familiar with this fight or flight stress response that their kids have and the challenges of being mindful and loving them and choosing to love them over and over again. I know you do a lot of different things. So why don't you share how people can get in touch with you? What kind of, and then we'll talk about your special project.
Okay, great. Thanks. I appreciate it. There's a number of ways to get a hold of me. My website, Dr. John DeGarmo Foster Care, you can access me through an email or newsletter there. And on that website, there are, access to my own radio program, Parenting Factors with Dr. John, which I believe you're familiar with. There are all the videos I do, the articles I've written, the Huffington Post, all that kind of stuff's on there. Access me on Twitter, Facebook, social media, Dr. John DeGarmo. Email me as well, drjohndegarmo@gmail.com. And when I say to contact me if they have a question, I really mean that. I am truly here to serve others. I want to help others so they can help their children. That's what I'm here for. So truly, go ahead and access me and contact me if I can be of any help or of any service. I'm here to serve.
And I can back you up on that. I have seen that to be true for myself. Whenever I've emailed you in that contact form on your website, you personally respond. And I know we've had at least one conversation after work hours where you were in the car with 5 kids on a hands-free headset just so that we could connect in between things. So I know you're a busy guy, but you really are driven by your purpose and your mission. And I know that right now you have this amazing project to create a residential group home for children. I would love for you to talk about that right now so that others can join this movement.
Well, thanks for asking. You know, my wife and I got to the point over the 13 years of having children in our home with up to 11. And right now 8 seems very, very small, believe it or not. We got to the point where we thought, you know what? We can't continue to do 10, 11 children in our home because our own kids are growing of age and they're at their high school, college, they need us, et cetera, et cetera. But we want to continue to help even more. How can we help more children? There are 500,000 children in foster care on any given day in the United States. So many of them don't have a place to go. And then those who age out of the system, about 125,000 will age out of the system. What happened to them? 55% will quit school. 65% will end up homeless. 75% will end up in jail. They don't have the life skills. They don't have the education, and they end up in the wrong place. So how can we help these kids? So my wife and I put a lot of prayer to it, and we felt that we want to open up a residential group home for boys ages 9 to 18, because society says when boys get to be a certain age, they're unadoptable. They lose that Q factor. There's so many group homes for girls, but there are none for boys. There's such a need for boys of that age. So we want to open up a home for these boys, for those boys who society considers unadoptable, or for those boys in foster care systems who just can't fit in a traditional home setting due to their trauma and their anxieties. So in this home, we're going to give them a place where they can heal, a place where they can find hope, a place where they can find love, and more importantly, a place where they can find family. A home where there will be 100% graduation rate with school. A home where they will have tremendous amounts of therapeutical, music therapy, animal therapy, play therapy, you name it, for all their traumas. A place where they're going to learn those important life skills, cooking and cleaning and taking care of themselves, filling out a job application, having career goals in front of them, having a driver's license, all those things. So when they leave the home, whether it's 18 or 21 years of age, they'll be ready. But more important than that when they leave the home and years later, they have a place to go back to, a family atmosphere that they can go back to. So right now we have found a wonderful place. It's a former nursing home. Set up a nonprofit organization. We're all set. Right now we're just doing a fundraising campaign so that my wife and I can buy this facility and have it debt-free, so that when the grants come in, they'll be able to take care of the sustainability. So right now we are putting through a lot of prayer that people will feel in their hearts that they can contribute to a place where children in need can start healing, where children in need can begin to find hope and begin to find a place they can call family.
I love that. And what we will do is we will make sure to put a link underneath this video in the blog post so that people can access that. Can you give us a verbal, is there a link or is it on your website, or what's the best way if someone's only listening and not reading this?
Right, thanks for asking. It's called Never Too Late. Never too late for childhood. Never too late for a happy life. Never too late for healing. Never too late for a family. That's where Never Too Late comes from. So if they go to the website Never Too Late Foster Care, they can find it there. If they go to the Facebook page Never Too Late Foster Care, they can go there. They go to my website. They can find it on my own website, a link to it. There's a GoFundMe campaign right now that we have in process of trying to raise the money. We're trying to raise $300,000, which will buy the facility and do some improvements on it. It's almost move-in ready right now. There's a few things we want to do to it. And think about it, $300,000 for a 12-bedroom facility is fantastic.
That is fantastic. I so appreciate you sharing that project. I know that I have it on my calendar, on my to-do list today to make sure that I go log in and contribute. I so appreciate your time, Dr. John, and I know that the work you're doing is so important. And as we always say over here to every single parent, what you do matters. And you are the first person I have interviewed where I really, truly, from the bottom of my heart, want to say that to you as a parent. What you do matters, and thank you so much for how you show up in the world helping kids.
Thank you. I feel called to do it. There's so many children out there, and, when I get that phone call to help a child in need, it's so hard for me to say no because that child needs somebody, and I have been blessed with so much, and I want to get back to these children that are hurting. So I thank you for the opportunity to talk about it. Thank you for the opportunity to be on your show, and I'm just grateful for the opportunity to help children.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Dr. John, and everybody. We will put some links below this in the blog. Make sure you go check him out. Check out his radio show. It's The Parent Factor. You can find him on Facebook. You can find his website. Just Google Dr. John DeGarmo, foster care expert. Have a great evening, John.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.